Hey everyone, it's me, Kirk Mastin, here at Mastin Labs, and today we're going to be talking about editing different types of skin tones and getting really beautiful results in just, 3 steps or less. So join us. We're going to be editing these great community photos. I've got a bunch of great community photos here from our community, and it's going to be a good time, and I'm going to give you all my tips and tricks, everything that I know to nail those skin tones. If you are watching this for the first time, and I forgot to do this last time, but I should always do it, you need to subscribe. Just look in the top of this, look above this video, hit the subscribe button. Also, ding the dinger, get that little bell, ding that bell, and you will never miss a live edit, because what makes these so special is that you have a chance to ask questions live while we're doing this, get your questions answered, and I can help you in even a deeper way than a pre-recorded video. So don't miss out. Subscribe, hit that bell, and you'll be set. So before we start, I'm going to go over our 3-step workflow. I do this every video just to show you kind of how simple it is to use Mastin Labs. It's kind of important that you follow this 3-step workflow. So first, you want to apply the preset. This does all the major kind of changes in the color palette and the micro contrast. It's important to apply the preset first, because every film that we've made an emulation from has a native white balance in it. Meaning if you scan Fuji film, like real film, it's going to be very cool. If you scan most Kodak films, it's going to be very warm, straight out of the scanner. And our North Star is emulating film exactly. So always apply the preset first. Second, you want to adjust exposure. Often it means increasing exposure in Lightroom. Why? Most cameras want to protect the image at the sensor level so that you get all of that highlight detail. So your camera will intentionally underexpose just a tiny bit when you're shooting. Even if you think it looks right, it's going to be a little underexposed. So often you adjust up. And the last thing is you're going to adjust white balance and tint. This is where the real magic happens. No camera is going to get it right for you, even if with auto white balance, even with an expo disc, even with a color checker. You're still going to have to use your brain and the 2 eyeballs that are connected to it to find out if your color is a little bit off and adjust for that. But it's really simple, and I will help you do that. I've got some good tricks for that. Okay, so let us get started. Oh, and by the way, that's just 3 steps. That's all you got to do. It's very easy. And then there's some other cool tools involved. But let's start, and we'll go through these great images. We've got a wide variety of skin tones. And as I go, if you have any questions, please let me know. This is your chance. So ask me questions. I know this is very frustrating for a lot of people. They're trying to get just really wonderful skin tones in every single image. One question I often get is, if you've got 2 very different skin tones in one image, how do you adjust the image? Do you have to kind of pick one skin tone over the other to get it really nice? Or how do you do that? I've got some images later where I'll show you, but the short answer is you can get them both to look really nice. It just really matters on the way you edit and what preset or style you use to edit with. So this first image is by Carmen Faul. Thank you for sending it in. Carmen requested Fuji original, so I'm going to do that edit first. As I go, I'm going to talk about what presets or films work with different skin tones. Some work better; they align better with a certain skin tone. Some films or presets from those films clash a little bit with skin tones. It's kind of like makeup. You have a base undertone in your skin, just your complexion. You have certain kind of colors that your skin lives in, and if you get the wrong makeup, it clashes. You've got like an underlayer and a top layer, and they don't mix very nicely. However, if you have the right makeup, then it enhances your natural skin tone. At least that's how I understand it. I thought it was a really good analogy. So presets and films are the same way. They do the same thing. So with this image, we're going to start with Fuji 400H. It's not a bad choice. Fuji 400H is a very neutral palette. It's very desaturated. It's pastel. It's light and airy. It has very high skin luminosity, meaning that it makes skin brighter, all skin types. It's a film that a lot of film shooters shoot because it has kind of a natural Photoshop in it. in the sense that it brightens skin up and reduces blemishes just auto-magically with the film, especially if you overexpose it. So it's not a bad choice on any skin tone. I applied Fuji 400H. That's the first step. Second step is I'm going to adjust white balance. White balance, so one thing to know is that Fuji films prefer being cooler, and Kodak and a lot of other films prefer to be warmer as far as what white balance you land on. So what I do with almost every film in the Fuji original pack and the Fuji push pack is I err on the side of cool. So I'll sweep this temperature slider back and forth, and I want to be just, so this is a little too cool. I want to just start on the cool side. So I start on the cool side and I go up until I notice that the image becomes warm. And I want to stop like right exactly at that moment. So like right about there. We'll see what our original white balance is. Okay, so I cooled it down like the most minuscule amount. It was already pretty cool. The second part is tint. Oh, I haven't even touched exposure. Exposure looks fine. The second part is tint. So tint, if you've seen in any of my other videos, and especially in one particular video just on tint, it's not so much of looking at the skin tone to figure out, where tint should be. It's looking at neutrals. So I look around the image. I look, sometimes behind the subject, looking for things that could be neutral. So they're either black or gray or white, or some color that I know within a monochromatic spectrum, so that I can figure out if there is a tint to that color. So in this image, I don't have like pavement to look at. I don't have like cement to look at. If she was wearing like something that was pure white or pure black or gray, I would use that to base my tint adjustment off of. Maybe her skirt down here, it looks a little bit magenta, actually, if you look at the highlights in it. I know this is like getting really granular, but this is the trick I've used for like my entire career. Well, the part that included digital. And I would look for these little areas where I could see some kind of tint issue, and I can see it right here. These highlights are magenta. So if I go into my tint slider, I'm going to just go ever so slightly towards green, zoom back out, and I think her skin tone already looks better. Yes, so you can see in the before it's too magenta, and in the after, now we have removed that magenta. It might even be able to go a little bit more. Maybe to there. Okay, so why am I doing that? Some people are going, why are you not just looking at her skin tone to adjust tint? Okay, that goes back to my first thing that I said, is that we all have different undertones in our skin. And that may be an undertone that's very magenta or green, really, for real, or yellow or whatever. Like you have a mix of colors in your skin. And if you focus on skin, you can just drive yourself crazy trying to get that tint dialed in. So the easiest way to not go crazy trying to get tint dialed in is to look for something you believe to be neutral, and I did that with her skirt, and it makes it way, way easier. You can adjust for that, and everything else should fall into place. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions, again, I'm here. Ask them, and I'll show you this in other examples as well. So there is a before and after with Fuji 400H. You can see the nice cool greens here, and it's kind of very pastel. So thank you, Carmen, for sending that in. Okay, so I've got this image from a trip. So I have one image in this edit that's mine. This is from going down to Sayulita, Mexico. We did some test shooting there for some new films that we're possibly going to release sometime. It's a secret. But anyway, I did a lot of portraits and things down there, and this is a portrait of Edgar, super cool guy. I threw him in the mix because he has a really fantastic skin tone for this video. And the original way that I edited him was with Ektar, which is traditionally not super great for skin. Why? Ektar is like a slide film, and slide film was meant to be very vibrant and super colorful, at least the consumer slide film, so that people could show like slideshows of their trips to wherever back in the day when people did slideshows at their house. Probably no one watching has ever seen a slideshow in your house, But they used to make the film super colorful, um, and they made Ektar that way as well. And what I like about Ektar is that, yes, normally it's not that great for skin. However, sometimes it can give you just a super rich look. And if you go through those 3 steps really carefully, you can make it work for most skin tones, which kind of blows my mind because it is so saturated, unlike Fuji 400H. So here's Ektar. Ektar on Edgar. It's like only a few letters away. Ektar and Edgar. Okay, so I applied Ektar. I'm going to just increase my exposure. This one needs a little exposure increase. The way that our presets and styles are built is that they protect highlights the same way that film does. So you can actually crank up the exposure pretty high, and there is detail in the highlights. Super important. That's kind of like how you get beautiful film looks, to be honest, is by overexposing and then having your lab sometimes increase the exposure even more, especially if you want that light and airy look. But anyway, I increased the exposure. His beard is kind of blending into his shirt. I'll take care of that in a second. And now temperature and tint. Is he too warm? Is he too cool? I think he could actually warm up a little bit. And now to the tint slider. So this is where, where's a neutral? I'm going to look for neutrals. He is wearing a black shirt. And wow, that is a really close up of his mouth. Yeah, he is such a cool guy. Let's see. The ring, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good neutral. It all looks pretty dialed in. I don't see any magenta or green in these little spots. I don't know, his teeth are pretty white. Yeah, looks good. So I think it needs no tint adjustment. So that's kind of one of those like miracle shots where the camera it was perfect, like perfect white balance, perfect tint. Don't ever expect that. If you get that, that's a gift. Don't ever expect it. Cameras are not that good yet at really getting the white balance right. Maybe with AI, sometime in the future, they'll actually get it right. But until then, you have to use your own eyeballs to do it. So, okay, so there's your basic adjustment. To bring out his beard, to kind of separate that from his shirt, we're going to go into the tone profile section and use Shadow Soft. So you can see as I hover over that, it just kind of brings out this darker area down here. And that's all you got to do for a really, really nice edit with Edgar. So this is the right look for him, I think. I'm going to make a copy real quick and show you how, if you have kind of, not the wrong preset, but just a film or a preset that clashes with the undertones of someone's skin, how it can kind of look a little bit weird. I'm going to go into, let's see. I think Portrait might not look very nice on him. Let's try Portrait 400. Yeah, I mean, there we go. So Portrait 400, it's, we can adjust the temperature and tint a little bit to make this a little better, but it's going to be a tricky puzzle to solve because it is not a film that really suits his original skin tone, if that makes sense. Portrait, any of the Portrait films like Portrait 160, Portrait 400, Portrait 800, they look really good on pale skin, basically. Sometimes you can make it work on other skin tones. It is a very versatile film, especially Portrait 400. I've shot that for years, like the actual film. And it's nice if you want something that's not too bold. You want something that's very neutral. Anytime you use Ektar on something and then look at anything else, it looks broken because Ektar, again, is like the most colorful film in production. I mean, yeah, it is. It is the most colorful film made right now. And that translates into the presets. So anything else looks like maybe something's off, but Portrait's got a lot of yellow and green in it. It's not so nice for Edgar's skin tone. It may work on other skin tones, but not so much on him. So having the right preset, the right film is very important. Why does Ektar work? Ektar works because it's very red and orange, like not a yellowy orange, but like a red orange and red focused film. That's where it has its most vibrancy and its most intensity, and that works really well with the tones that are already in Edgar's skin. So it's just like an enhancement. Whereas the green, now you can really see it. The green and the yellow in Portra is fighting against his undertones. And you get this kind of, I don't know, it's just unsatisfying, basically. Are there other films that would work with this? Yes, and they happen to kind of live all in the Fuji family. So any of the Fuji films, we could go to Fuji Color Every Day and go to, let me see, maybe Superior, bring down the temperature and maybe add a little tiny magenta, and there we go. And you can get a really nice look again because we've got an alignment of the undertone with the preset. Why does Superior 400 work? It too leans a little bit towards red and orange. In fact, all of the Fuji films made lean that way. Some of them also start to increase vibrancy in cyan, but I'm getting like really dorky now. You probably don't need to know that. If you want to know more though, you can always ask me because I'm here right now. But here are 3 examples, and let's see if I do this right. We've got Ektar on the left, Ektar from Adventure Every Day. It's like our #1 selling pack, followed by Portra 400 from Portra Original, which is a great pack on other skin tones. And then on the last one, we've got Superior 400 from the Fuji Color Everyday pack. It is a lot of stuff to remember. We have a lot of products at this point, but I will try to remember them all for you. And as a side note, we only make presets made from real film. None of these are invented. It's all about just preserving a real film look because that is timeless. You're never going to regret it later. It's like the reason that Mastin Labs exists is that I didn't want the real look of film to disappear. And Mastin Labs was formed at kind of the downfall of film. I was like, film is going to disappear. So I rushed to try to copy it. And I want to share that with you because it's a look you can hang your hat on. I mean, he's wearing a hat. He's hanging it on himself, but it is a look you can hang your hat on and you won't regret it later. You're not going to be like, oh, why did I follow that trend? It looks so lame now. I've never felt that way with film. So I made this for myself and now it is available to you and to everyone watching. And if you know me, you know how passionate I am about film. Okay, moving on off of my soapbox. This is by Pleasant Vano. That's a super cool name. Yeah, that's very cool. That sounds like a famous name, famous person for some reason. All right, so Pleasant, you want an Ektar. Okay, now we got a little reverse Edgar situation here. Her skin tone is really much more suited for the Kodak line of film. Well, Ektar is Kodak, but Ektar is kind of in its own galaxy. But for like the portrait films, her skin tone is more suited for that. Not so much for leaning super heavy into like red and orange. I'll do Ektar and then I'll compare it to Portra. Or no, that ruins everything. Ektar, like once you see Ektar, you can't see anything else. Let me start with Portra and then go to Ektar, and I will do your edit Pleasant. Okay. Blah. Okay, so Portra Original. Let's just do Portra 400. And let's see here. Exposure looks pretty good. Yeah, it looks great. Yeah, I'm not going to touch it. I was like just about to like raise it up to get a little more detail in her hair, but we can get that with a tone profile. And I think the midtones are just exactly where they need to be. Okay, temperature and tint. I think it'd be a little warmer. And then tint. Is there anything in this image that's neutral? Like anywhere? No. I don't think there's a single thing. The whites of people's eyes are not actually white, so I don't use that. Maybe these flowers? Yeah, maybe these flowers, I guess. I don't know. This is a tough one. I'm just gonna have to just feel it out. So I think she looks maybe a little bit. She looks a little magenta on this side. So I'm gonna add a little bit of green. Just okay. That seemed to have done the trick. A little bit of green and maybe a little bit more warmth. Now she's looking a little bit green around her mouth, so I'm gonna kind of split the difference here. It was at plus 13. I'm gonna go to like plus 10. All right, right about there. Right about there looks good to me. So this is a nice, like, basic Portra 400 edit. So before and after, looks really nice. I like the bulk of my photography career as a wedding photographer. I shot Portra 400 film, like, all the time. I liked it because most of my clients in Seattle are very, very pale. Like, we see the sun like a month out of the year, maybe. It's so short. It is very depressing. It's great if you're into winter sports and like digging clams in the rain. So Portra 400 was great on a lot of my clients because they're super pale, like myself. And Portra 400 and Portra 160 and Portra 800 have a lot of yellow and orange in them, and they add a particular kind of warmth that's really good for pale skin. So it's a nice, simple edit for Pleasant's photo. If I wanted to bring out her hair, I could do like shadow soft. There, perfect. Little tiny adjustments. Okay, now let's do Ektar. So I'm doing Ektar second because it's like Ektar is like the hot chili pepper you eat and then you can't taste anything else. You gotta like start with the more subtle things and then work your way up to the hot chili pepper of Ektar. So here's Ektar. Now there's like an insane amount of color. I'm gonna have to do another temperature and tint adjustment. As I said, every film has a different white balance baked into it, which is not a bad thing. It tells you where you should be adjusting your white balance when you use it. Any Fujifilm that you apply, any Fujifilm preset, the image is gonna look very cool, as it should. It's a very cool film. And it's kind of a reminder to yourself that you should be editing towards the cool side. If you make Fuji look really warm, it looks really weird. And the opposite is true with Kodak. All Kodak films, when you use them or a preset, it's going to look super warm, and you're actually going to be backing off the warmth possibly a little bit, but it's reminding you that it should be more warm than cool, if that makes sense. So here it is with this image with Ektar. It still looks pretty good. It's a little harsh. Ektar is very contrasty, so I might want to, smooth that out with all soft. I do like the highlights though. Let's just use shadow soft. Yeah, I like a good clean highlight, like a kind of a brighter highlight, not blown out, but it's got a little bit of depth to it. So I left it. Some people would do like all soft, where you're also kind of knocking down the highlights. To each their own. Both look good, but I tend to like a little bit hotter highlights. So let's compare these. And again, Ektar is the hot chili pepper where you eat it and you like can't taste anything else. But still, you can see the kind of the subtle, beautiful palette of Portra on her pale skin on the left. And on the right, Ektar still looks good. It still looks really good. But you're very much committing yourself to a lot of color at that point, like a ton of color. And I don't know, they have different feelings. I think for this image, I think the Portra edit matches her skin tone and the mood better than Ektar, but both look good. So yes, sometimes I'm like, am I geeking out too much on this? And then I'm like, no, this is about skin tone, so you can't go too deep. So it's good. Okay, let's move on. All right, so this is by, and thank you so much, Pleasant, for sending that image in. This is by Roman Lisovoy. I hope I got that right. Thank you for sending this image in. We've got some very bold color in here. We've got this red door, kind of blue, I forget what those are called, cami? Like tank top? Blue tank top. Yeah. This will be very good for color. So Roman asked for Ektar. Okay, I think that'll work. Oh, that's a lot of color. Okay, let's go with this, and then I'm going to give you an alternate choice, kind of based on her vibe, her mood, her facial expression and pose. So Ektar is, again, the most colorful thing on the planet. Very popular, but I don't know if it quite fits this. But so there's Ektar. I'm going to, let's see, exposure, maybe bring it down just a tiny bit. And then temperature, it's a little bit too warm. I want these reds to be red and not like red-orange. So I'm just bringing it down just a little bit. Okay, now tint. Again, this is a tough edit. I don't have any neutrals in any of my images today. Let's look at her hair. Okay, that looks a little green right there. I don't know, it looks pretty neutral. It's a small patch to look on. And if anything, this looks too cool. If this is truly white in between the flowers, it looks a little too cool. So let me warm that up. About there. Yeah, that's just where this wants to lay, like the temperature and everything. So that looks pretty well balanced to me. I mean, we've got a really nice clean separation of color between the red of this door and her dress. It's hard to explain, but like when you get the color balance just right, like temperature and tint, all of the colors kind of lock into place. And your brain just knows it. It's like puzzle pieces kind of fitting together perfectly, and I can see that especially right down here. We've got the leftover effect of Ektar though, which is very a lot of orange and red. Actually, this is a great time to show you a tool. So here is our basic Ektar edit. And sometimes everything is perfect, but for her skin tone in particular, it's a little bit too orange. So she already has some orange in her underlying, like in her complexion, like in her undertone. Sometimes this is even under your first layer of skin. You have multiple tones going down through the different layers, and it's bringing out a little bit too much orange. So you can go and use the orange reduction tool in the toolkit. And see how that just knocks down her skin tones back into kind of a more pleasant amount of warmth. I don't recommend using orange reduction for everything. It is not meant to be used on everything. It's meant to help you ease skin that has a little bit of orange in it already back into a more like pleasant range. But when you need it, it is a fantastic tool. So there you go. There's orange reduction. All right. Now I'm going to show you what I think may be a better match for this image. Okay. So I'm going to go into the Fuji Everyday pack. Actually, maybe not that even. Okay, I'm going to go into the Moodiest pack. Let's do Portrait Push and see what happens. There we go. Okay. So why am I diving into this pack? I'm basing it off of her mood. So it's kind of mysterious. Everything in the Portrait Push pack is based on pushed portrait film. And that look tends to be a little bit moodier and edgier. So I think it might work here. Let's do Portrait 160, push one stop. I'm going to decrease the exposure. And let's see here. Warm it up just a bit. Looking for either green or magenta. It looks a little bit green on her cami and her dress, so I'm going to add a little magenta, just a tiny bit. And there we have kind of a very, very different edit. And it's like so different. I think maybe a darker look is more appropriate on this image just to match the feeling. As far as skin tone goes, I also think that Ektar is maybe too much for her skin, even with orange reduction. So I would look maybe elsewhere. I was also thinking Superior 400 would be good. Superior 400 is like it's like the chilled out cousin of Ektar. It's like Ektar, but just not so like in your face. Let's do Superior. Superior, I'm going to do a quick temperature adjustment, exposure, and maybe a tiny bit of magenta. There we go. So here's some choices for you. Ektar on the left, it's just like so much color. We've got a more moody 160, Portrait 160 push one stop in the middle. And then we've got Superior 400 on the right. And I think, actually looking at all three, I think that suits her best, Superior 400. Okay, thank you so much, Roman, for sending this in. And I hope this has been helpful so far. I've got just a few more here to edit. Okay, this is by, I think is by Dr. Andre Peralta, but there's also a second name, so Louis Sanchez. So maybe Louis or the doctor is the person in the photo and the other person is the photographer. I'm not sure, but whoever sent it in, thank you so much. And you requested Kodak every day, so I'm going to assume that you mean adventure every day. And yeah, I don't know if you meant Ektar Gold. Ektar is super popular, so maybe that's what you mean. So let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to apply Ektar. Go into my exposure, bring it up a little bit. Looking at this image, it actually works kind of nice this way. It's like super extra too cool. I would normally warm it up, but if you wanted kind of a colder, like you know, bluish urban vibe, like it works really nicely with all this metal and this like warehouse back here. But I'm going to warm it up a little bit because, like I said earlier, all Kodak films are kind of meant to be on the other side of cool. So if you're looking at a range and like one side is cool, then you have completely neutral, and then the other side is warm. Kodak films are meant to be just past the neutral point towards warm. That's just naturally where they're supposed to be. So I'm going to warm this up, and it should look better. Okay, so warmed it up. Although, I mean, again, you could do the cool look too. It's just a little more editorial looking that way, which is not a bad thing. Okay, we got a ton of neutral spots in this image. This is easy. Up until this point, we had almost no neutral spots in any of the other images. Here we've got this bar, we've got the warehouses, we've got the street. That's a lot of choices for me to find a neutral. I can see without even zooming in that the image is too green. And I bet you can see that at home. You just look at the background, it's too green. So we're going to go into the tint slider and just increase the tint just a little bit. And then all the colors kind of unlock. He looks fantastic. And there's your before and after with Ektar. I am curious to see what this would look like with Kodak Gold. We haven't talked about that one yet. Kodak Gold is interesting. It is the film that if you're over the age of like 35, this is what and if you lived in North America or Canada, your parents probably shot you on that film. So when you see it, you'll have kind of an emotional subconscious reaction, I think, to it. But what makes Kodak Gold so cool is that it has warm skin tones and it has kind of jade green undertones, and it's a very unique look. So I don't know how it's going to work on him. I think it should be okay, but it's not like Portrait where it would not work. So here's Kodak Gold 200. You can see kind of the jade green in the shadows, and I'm going to warm him up just a little bit. There. Okay. So one thing is I knew that the shadows were going to be jade green. That's something to remember with Kodak Gold. So if you're looking for a neutral to correct out, and you correct out all that jade green, you know, like to here, it could get maybe a little bit too magenta. So let me show you both. And you tell me what you like. They're very different, but they're both really pleasing. Honestly, I think I like the Kodak Gold. It just has a really nice kind of softer film look for him in particular in this situation. This Ektar on the left is still really nice. It's just, I don't know. I just like the mood of Kodak Gold 200 on the right. I'm very curious to know what you think as well. All right, we got one more photo left to do here before we're at the end of our time slot. And I thought I would, now this is a photo that you've probably seen on our website. It is from a community member named Artina Becker. We love this photo. The reason I pulled this into this edit as our last photo is that, again, we often get questions about what do you do if you have very different skin tones in the same photo. How do you edit it? What do you choose? How do you adjust white balance? All of that. So I thought this would be a good one to end on. So the basic concept when you're editing multiple skin tones in one image is this. If you find yourself having to go get a brush, like a brush on the side, and brushing in one skin tone to make it look right, you are using the wrong preset. Whether we make it, someone else makes it, you made it yourself, that is not an efficient and good workflow, and it will look weird. And it's just a very broken way to do it. It's not a good way to do it. You can find a look that will make both skin tones look really, really nice though. In general, I would say that those looks will live within any of the Fuji films. Any Fuji film is going to be very kind to pretty much all skin tones. If anything, it's going to make pale skin look a little too pale, but it definitely won't make it look like sickly or weird at all. So that's good. So with a photo like this, I would probably look more towards the Fuji films to get everything to kind of line up. So a real classic thing would be, I think on the website it's edited with 160 NS. So I'll just show you that one. That's from Fuji Color Original. 160 NS really favors pink and cyan, pink and magenta and cyan. And when I say favor, it means it intensifies those colors. And it works nicely on this image once I adjust white balance. So there is Fuji 160 NS. As far as exposure goes, I'm going to just increase it a little bit. This is a light and airy image. And then I'm going to do temperature and tint. This image is way too cool. I mean, the top of his head is like blue. It's too cool. And his pants are kind of blue. Very much too cool. And like her foot is turning blue. Okay, so obviously it's too cool. We're going to warm it up. Still keeping it on the cool side because it is a Fuji film. If I went up to like here, that's way too far. Way too far. Maybe for a Kodak film that would be okay, but that's way too far. We want to go way too, not way too cool, but cool, and then go up until it feels warm. And you can especially see that in the greens. You don't want Fuji greens to become warm. That's just not the look. So like right about there, it's already looking really, really good. And now we're going to look at tint. So looking over this entire image, do we have some neutrals? Yes, we do. We've got this kind of white dress. We've got his shirt. That's looking pretty neutral to me. I don't really see anything going on here. So I think that's like perfect. And you can see that it all locks together. We have quite a range of skin tone here between the two parents and the children. We've got a really nice kind of spectrum, and you can see that all the skin tones look pretty good. I hope that helps. One thing you did not see me doing is going over here and bringing in brushes and trying to like fix things in like little patches. If you do that, it's just going to take you like for the rest of your life to edit one session, and it's just never going to look quite right. You want a really cohesive look. So if you find the right preset or style, you'll be able to lock everything into place. And in general, I recommend any of the Fuji Color, either the actual films or the presets. Except maybe Ektar. Maybe Ektar. Ektar is a strange beast. Why is Ektar different? Unlike all the portrait films, it really was a new film built from the ground up to be a landscape film. So all of the decisions made for skin tones in the other Kodak films really didn't play into Ektar. So sometimes you can get away with it. So let's just show you Ektar real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. If you have any questions, let me know. We'll also be answering questions later in the comments after this is recorded. So here is Ektar. Oh, woo! That's a lot of color. I'm gonna have to scrub my eyes. So let's see if we can tame that. Bring the temperature down a little bit, maybe exposure up just a little bit. You know, it's a landscape film. People use it for weddings all the time and portrait sessions. You just have to tame it a little bit. So I might even do all soft. Yeah, there we go. We're kind of just wrangling it back under control. However, any of the Fuji films were much easier to work with, and I think you just have a nicer result starting with kind of the appropriate film or preset. So Fuji 160 on the left from Fuji Original, and on the right we've got Ektar from Adventure Everyday. And I like the Fuji 160 NS. Yes, we have a question. Oh, it's on the screen. Yes. What's up, Trent? I'm just curious how a Fuji push would do here. I don't think it's the best idea, but curious how this type of image would respond. That's a great question, Trent. Fuji pushed is interesting. It is taking this kind of light and airy style on the left and pushing it in development to give you more contrast. And in particular, what happens is you get a shift in the upper midtones and highlights towards magenta. That's just what happens with Fujifilm. A lot of people love it. It gives you very kind of, I don't know, fantastical, ethereal look that people love, and I'll show you. For some people, it's not quite what they want. I think the Fuji Push Pack really is a fantastic pack for high key, so bright environment newborn photography. It's great for engagement sessions with a lot of light. It's great for weddings if you want more of a pop of color without going into kind of over the top Ektar world. So we'll see. Let's do Fuji color pushed. So here's 160 NS from Fuji Color Original, and then if you wanted to see what happens when you push that film, you get a much bolder look. In fact, I could probably do some slight adjustments here to give you a better sense of it. You can see how much it pops. So let me compare the pushed and the non-pushed version. And Trent, I don't know if you can see this or not. I'll zoom in to make it easier, but I'll point out the differences for you. So look at the contrast levels right over here and here. So you see how he just kind of pops out of the frame. There's a lot, the black points come up a lot quicker in this image. So we hit black a lot easier, faster, and the same with white points. So his shirt is very bright, her arm is bright. But the other thing that happens if you look in the sky, there's a slight pinkness or peach almost over here on the push version. So they both look really good. They're not insanely different, but there are enough differences to be significant. And I think for this kind of image, it's fantastic. And it might also work really nicely with, our first image and possibly this one, and maybe even Edgar would look, really nice with Fuji pushed. It's a little more specialized look, but I hope that helps. It's a good way to go too. It's kind of a nice add-on. It's like if you go to college, you would major in Fuji Original and then you would minor in Fuji pushed. I guess. They're both nice to have. You'd probably use Fuji Original more, and then say for the engagement session or a family session or something, you would switch over to Fuji Push for more of a kind of a exciting, poppy, colorful look. So, okay. I hope that was helpful. All right. So thank you for joining me today. We do these live edits every week. If this is your first time, welcome. If this is like your 500th time, thank you so much for sending in your photos. I love editing community photos, so please send them in. We have an ongoing link in our Facebook community almost all the time to take photos in for these live edits, so please do it. Oh, yeah, and there's a link in the YouTube description as well to submit your photos. So I'd always rather work on your photos than one of mine because I want to help you. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe. Just hit the subscribe button and also the bell wherever it is, if it's over here or maybe over there, so you don't miss anything. We go live every week. Also, if you're not part of our Facebook community, it is a fantastic group of people. I think we're at about 58,000 people now, right here. I know all of them by name. I don't, but I wish I did. And they're very helpful. If you have any questions, they're there to help. We're there to help. And if you want to see what Mastin Labs looks like on your photos, you can do that for free just by joining that group and submitting a few photos in the comments or in the news feed. And you'll have like 15 people jump in, edit it however you want, and show you the results. Because that way you know. There's so many presets out there, and they can look good in like the little grids they show you of like stock images they bought somewhere, and that's like all well and good. But I mean, how many times have you bought them and then you try them on your images and they look like garbage because they're not the exact images that were used by the company? And we take a very different approach. We're about real film, staying true to that, and helping people grow. We're there for you, like all the way past like any kind of sale. We're here to help you grow. And if you have any hesitation, just drop some images into the Facebook group and you can see firsthand on real images that you shot what is possible. It's really cool. Also, if you have any other questions, you can DM us directly at m.me/Mastin Labs, and we will answer your questions personally. So I hope you enjoyed today's session. Please join us again for our next one. And remember, have a good day and happy editing.